Good afternoon and welcome to the Committee of Adjustments hearing for Suburban Panel 2. We are a City of Ottawa quasi-judicial tribunal that holds public hearings to consider planning applications, including minor variances to the zoning requirements and consent to sever land. Our hearings are now in Ben Franklin Place at 101 Centerpoint Drive. We also enable remote participation by video conferencing for our registered speakers. We are live streaming on YouTube, and the video will be archived and available for future viewing by the public. My name is Fabien Poulin. I'll be chairing today's hearings, and you can address me by my name or as chair. And with me are my fellow panel members, Jay Baltz, George Barrett, Heather McLean, and Julianne Wright. The procedure for the hearings will be as follows. Listed on the agenda and appearing on screen from time to time are the applications we'll hear today. For the sake of efficiency, I may deal with agenda items in a different order. Panel members have reviewed the planning reports and any written submissions in support or in opposition to each of the applications. Today, we'll hear any oral submissions relating to the application. As part of the statutory public notification requirements, each applicant was required to post a sign on the property in question before the hearing. They also had to confirm in writing that they did so, or they'll need to swear or affirm an oath that they've fulfilled the sign posting requirements. Otherwise, we may have to adjourn or postpone the hearing. The panel may ask for a brief presentation of an application followed by questions for the applicant and city planning staff. We will then hear from members of the public who have registered to speak, and we may also have questions for them. Finally, the applicant who has the burden of proof will have the opportunity to make a final comment in reply. Please address your comments to me as the chair, starting with your name and spelling it if necessary, and your municipal address for the record. All presentations are limited to 5 minutes. Any exceptions will be at my discretion. At the end of the hearing, the panel may either make an oral decision or we may reserve our decision, which means it won't be delivered today. In either case, and within 10 days, the Committee of Adjustment will send the official written decisions and reasons for it to all the parties, participants, and anyone else who has requested a copy. Does anyone have a question or questions about the procedure we'll be following today? There are no questions. We have several applications to hear today, but we first need to deal with some preliminary procedural matters. Are there any declarations of interest from our panel members or any other agenda items on the other panels? There are no declarations of interest. We have one group of minutes for the December 10, 2024 hearing, and I'd like to ask the panel if they will confirm their acceptance of these minutes. All those in favor, please raise your hands. The minutes have been approved. Now we'll proceed on to withdrawal or adjournment request. We have a request for item number 5, 30 Mayo, looking to have this application adjourned. Would Jason Grant please come down if he's here? Is the applicant online? Okay. Mr. Grant, are you available?
There we go. Sorry, I'm here.
It's okay.
Thank you.
There is a request for adjournment for this application. Sir, are you in agreement?
Yes, there was a second minor variance required that we weren't aware of, and so we're in the process of reconfiguring our application to do so and to clarify and clean up a couple of questions that the forestry department has regarding our application.
Okay. I believe there is also one request by the OSSO to allow time for you to submit a professional engineered plan locating the existing sewage system with respect to the proposed attached garage location. Yes,
that's right. That's correct. Okay. We're in the process of cleaning that up too. It's on the septic is on the opposite side of the property, so we're not anticipating any issue, but it is an older home, and so they need to see exactly where it is.
I think we need to adjourn this application sine die. And to that end, I'd like to ask the panel if they agree and would like to adjourn this application sine die. All those in favor, please raise your hands. The application is adjourned sine die, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's that one. Our next application looking to be adjourned has to do with 320 River Road. I'm looking for Mr. Segreto. Mr. Segreto, are you available? Is he online? Okay.
How do I log in here?
I can hear you now, I think, Mr.
Oh, yeah.
Segreto.
Okay, all right. Yes, I'm here.
So we have a request for adjournment of your application for 320 River Road. Are you in agreement, sir?
No, I'd like to proceed with it, please.
Okay. We understand that it probably needs a variant and an easement. Is that correct?
I think maybe variance. We sent this stuff to the planner months ago. We never got a response from them, but there may be a variance. I'm not sure what the variance is for, if it's to allow the lot even to exist, to front on a lane, I guess, if that's the variance, I'm not sure.
Okay. So do you agree that if it requires a variance, it needs to be recirculated?
No, I think it's a little bit more complicated than that. I think I need to get a decision so then I can move forward with this file.
So you'd like to have this this application heard today, sir?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so we will put that in order and it'll be we'll come up to it when we come up to it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Now we have a list of unopposed applications that here we are. That I'd like to let you know what the criteria is for these unopposed applications. The application must have no objections or concerns from the parties, that is the applicant, city, or the public. There are no amendments required, no registered speakers. Signposting declaration has been received. The applicant or agent has confirmed that they agree with all requested conditions, if any, and no questions from panelists. So we have on that list then is application number 2 having to do with 1975 Banff. And we have also application number 5 having to do with 2173 Auburn Ridge. Another one is application number 6 having to do 412 Legget. Application number 7 having to do with 28 Gervin. And application number 9 having to do with 2560 Mer Bleu. And I'd like to ask the panel if they agree with all these applications being unopposed and we approve their application. All those in favor, please raise your hands. These applications are have now been passed by the committee, and we'll now move on to the items in order. And we'll first start with item number 1, 535 Legget Avenue. And I'm looking for Mr. Ireland or Ms. Ireland. Well, we emptied the house. Jay Ireland, are you available?
He's online, Mr. Chair.
Perfect, thank you. Are you there, Mr. Ireland?
I am, yes.
Great. Could you please give us your name and address for the record, please?
My name is James Ireland, Ireland. I'm a planner at Novatech, which is 240 Michael Copeland Drive, Kanata.
Okay. And I believe we have an amendment to the document. Essentially, we're saying that the retained property shown on the said plan will have a frontage of 105.74 meters and a regular depth and a lot area of 7,936 meters. Do you agree with that, sir?
Yes, there was a revised draft reference plan which added 1 square meter to the parcel being severed, and so the frontage remains the same. Yes.
Okay. Could you please give us a brief description of your application today, sir?
Certainly. So the parcels involved is 535 Legget, and there's a lot line adjustment proposed with the parcel next to it, which is 555 Legget to the north. 535 Legget at the moment is a slightly oddly shaped parcel. There's a 11-story office tower at the front part of it, and then it has a strange section at the back, which is a historical thing. It's just used for parking. Now, we have a concurrent site plan and zoning bylaw amendment application in with city staff to convert that tower on the site from office to residential apartments. The parking for that is neatly and sort of logically in the front part of the site, and the rear part of the site is really not needed, and so it's proposed to transfer it to 555 Legget, who will continue to use it for office parking for that property. We've had discussions with the city engineers about easements and potential easements and ECAs. That was resolved to our satisfaction, to everyone's satisfaction. So we have some conditions which we agree with. Thank you.
You're welcome. I note that the conditions that you just referred to, do you agree with all of them?
Yes, we do.
Great. Okay. Now I'd like to ask the panel if they have any questions. Ms. McLean?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question for Mr. Ireland and then one for the city planner. When I looked at the, Mr. Ireland, when I looked at the reference plan, it looked like there was a retaining wall, perhaps an overhang belonging to 525 Legget, and some kind of precast upper level overhanging part, the line for part 4. Just whether you could clarify that or not.
My understanding is that the reference plan only takes in 2 properties I mentioned, 535 and 555. I wasn't. It's not intended to take in 525.
Okay, I just the it just looked from looking at the draft reference plan that there were some structures of existing buildings overhanging that proposed conveyance. So I'll leave that there, and then I wonder if the city planner, I wondered if the a condition should be imposed about the approval of a zoning amendment on this piece of land as part of the severance.
Ms. King?
So like they're currently undergoing the process. They have already applied for their zoning bylaw amendment and their site plan control application. So Development Review West staff are currently in the process of reviewing it. From what I understand, there are a few deficiencies with their current submission, so they will be addressing those through. Any concerns that staff do have are being currently met. So like they are actively doing it right now. This lot line adjustment is just like a minor thing, but the site plan control application and the zoning bylaw application will capture any other concerns that aren't going to be met through this lot line adjustment, because we're not really dealing with a severance right here. So.
Mr. Baltz, any questions for the applicant?
No. No, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Wright? Mr. Barrett? Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to move to our the planning services, and Ms. King, do you have any comments to make about this application?
No, no concerns. We had some good conversations with the applicant prior to the hearing, just regarding the conditions, particularly with the servicing and grading plan, and it was a very good conversation. We've all been on the same page with this, so happy to say no concerns and looking forward to seeing this file through to the end, so.
Thank you. Ms. McLean, any comments? Questions? Mr. Barrett? Mr. Barrett? No. Mr. Baltz? Any questions? No? Ms. McLean?
Right? No.
Or Ms. Wright, sorry. Okay, all right, so there are no questions or comments. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this matter? Don't have anyone? Okay, so to that end, I'd like to ask Mr. Ireland, you have the opportunity for the last word, if you'd like to use it.
Thank you. I don't believe I need to say anything further.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to ask the panel if they would like to reserve on this application. All those in favor, please raise your hands. This application will be reserved, Mr. Ireland, and you'll get our decision within 10 days. Thank you
Okay.
very much for your help.
Thank you.
Okay, now on to our next item, which is item number 3, having to do with 1299 Dorchester. Mr. Segreto, are you available?
Hello?
Hello, are you there, Mr. Segreto? Yep.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, perfect. So I think we understand basically the proposal here. I think we'd just like to try and get from you a discussion on the parking and essentially the concerns that were expressed by the public at one point.
Well, basically, I think one of the questions from one of the neighbors in the area was that there wasn't enough parking in the rear yard. They were concerned about that. And basically, a lot having 450 square meters, you're not allowed to have any parking on it at all. So we're asking this variance to have at least one parking per parcel per building. We believe that by having the parking space there, it actually it's a good thing. You know, it's more functional for a property to at least have one parking space on it in case there's emergencies or whatever. And we have more than enough landscaped area in the back. We comply with the landscaped area. We comply with the storage of garbage. We comply with bicycles in the back. So it was just that my clients felt that they needed the parking space in the back. And the concern was from the neighborhood, why isn't there more parking? Well, basically, we're following the rules and regulations of the city that do not want to see too much parking on this site here, so they can promote the transit system in this particular area, which is fairly busy to all the amenities, commercial areas, and whatnot in the area.
Okay, thank you very much. Now I'd like to ask the panel if they have any questions. Mr. Baltz, do you have any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So Mr. Segreto, it's really the same issue that I want to address, except I'm coming at it from the other direction. The R4U zones were created fairly recently. And you know, to my mind, one of the core provisions for the low-rise apartment buildings in those zones was prohibiting parking, specifically to maximize the landscaped open space. The only place I could find a diagram of the actual parking was in the, the tree planting plan. I assume that's accurate, but it shows a large portion of the backyard paved over in order to allow access to the 2 spaces plus the turning, the area for turning. So I'm a bit concerned that it's over paved in order to just provide 2 parking spaces. I mean, it seems to me that 1 parking space could be provided between the buildings. So all that paving is to have one extra parking space. So I'm wondering if you can comment on that and justify the decision.
Again, with respect to the landscaped area in the back, we're not asking for any variances for the landscaped area. I believe we meet that criteria of the landscaped area. It was just that my clients, again, would like to have at least one parking space per building, should they decide at some point in time to sell these properties to another owner or whatever. I feel that the greenery in the back that I have, I'm looking at it right now, and I feel that the greenery is there. If there's another product that we can put on the interlocking in the back or the paved area in the back, there's other products that we could put there that would enhance the grass in the back to give it more of a green space in the back. There's a product, I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but I know there's a product that we can put and remove the hard surface in the back.
Thank you.
Ms. McLean, do you have any questions or comments? Ms. Wright? Mr. Barrett? Okay, thank you. I'd like to move to our planning services. Ms. King, do you have any comments to make about this application?
I have no concerns with this proposal. Oh, sorry, let me just turn on my camera. I'm getting into a bit of a bad habit just so the people online can see me. I have no concerns with the proposal. I think it's a very appropriate development given what the context that we're looking with. Just with the conversation of like the rear yard with the parking and the pavers, I believe the word we're looking for is that they are showing like permanent pavers on that plan. And I will also highlight planning forestry comments. They did note that the plans provided show adequate space in the rear yard to plant 2 new large trees in the rear yard. So kind of following up with what Mr. Segreto said, like even though they don't need any variances to that rear yard, they're still capable of planting large trees, and it looks like even one in the front yard as well. So I don't really foresee any concerns with the landscaping, and especially with the support of forestry staff on this.
Thank you. Mr. Baltz, do you have any questions for planning?
Yeah, I mean, just to follow up on that, since I brought it up, it was my impression that the R4U zones were created to have there were 2 independent provisions to preserve green space, one of which you're referencing and Mr. Segreto referenced, which is the minimum 35 square meter, of which 25 square meters has to be a rectangle, not more, not more than twice as long as it is wide, that whole bit. And that's certainly, I think there's, what is it? 52 and 53 square meters at the outer corners. So they're meeting that. But the prohibition of parking, in my understanding, was an independent provision to increase landscaped open space, soft landscaping, independent of the rectangle, of the 35 square meters in the rectangle. Is that not true? I'm getting at the intent of the zoning bylaw here, which is one of our 4 tests. And having sat on the technical advisory committee for the R4U zoning bylaw amendment, I mean, I remember all these discussions and what the intent was meant to be. So I'm interested in why this isn't more of an issue here when they can provide one of the 2 parking spaces between the buildings and have completely soft landscaped rear yards.
I'd have to take a second to like pull up the planning and committee report to find the exact reason, but I think in this instance, like this is what the applicant has proposed to staff. We've pre-consulted on this, and kind of like what I said earlier, I mean, this is kind of the joys of having minor variances where you have these projects that come in and need like those slight variations. I still believe this is a very appropriate project in the sense, if they were doing more than 1 parking space, maybe we would have had concerns because then that would have taken out less landscaping space, but kind of to the point that looking at the other factors that they're going, I would still have no concerns with what they're currently proposing. I think it really ultimately comes down to what some proposals, because we have seen other proposals in this zone where we might have concerns with how many parking spaces they're providing. And like you said, it kind of depends on whether they're applying that area, or in some cases, there's like a 4.5 meter wide buffer. Like it really depends on that proposal and how that applicant is working with that site ultimately at the end of the day. So.
Thank you. I'm done, Mr. Chair.
Ms. McLean, do you have any questions? Ms. Wright? Any questions? Mr. Barrett, any questions? Okay. And I don't believe we have any members of the public looking to speak. Okay, so that's good. Well, it's not good, we just don't have it. But so to that end, I'd like to ask Mr. Segreto if you have any last words to say on this application.
Yes, I feel this is a good project, an appropriate project for this particular neighborhood in this area here. It's great intensification. My clients would like to do 2 nice low-rise apartments here, total of 8 units in each one. I think it's great intensification. And again, the province is looking for these types of infills with respect to the low housing, and this is what we're catering to. And I think it's a great project if we are successful in getting to do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Now I'd like to ask the panel if they approve of, if they would like to reserve on this application. All those in favor of reserving, please raise your hands. This application will be reserved, Mr. Segreto, and you'll have our written decision within 10 days. Thank you very much. Now, I'd ask you to stick around because you're the next application up.
Okay.
All right, thank you, sir.
Can,
The next application has to do with 320 River Road. And that's application number 8.
can we go to the PowerPoint for a second?
Sure. So, Mr. Segreto, we're going to call up that PowerPoint you're asking for. And I think there it is. So if you'd like to proceed with a brief description, we'd love to hear it.
Mr. Segreto's just reconnecting. Should just be a
Okay.
minute.
All right, thank you. Hello, Mr. Segreto.
Sorry about that. Okay.
Oh, that's okay.
So
So we're just looking for a brief description of the application, sir.
sure. So basically, it's a very large parcel of land just off of River Road. And what my clients would like to do is obviously sever the property, create 3 new lots, and do single-family dwelling, 2-story single-family dwellings. My understanding on this file here, the biggest problem that I have is I believe I'm not fronting onto a public street. I'm fronting onto a city lane. In any event, on this sketch that you see in front of you, you'll see the 3 parcels of land, part 1, 2, and 3. Can we go to the next slide? So again, you can see that the land, no problem at all, 2,000, 3,000 square foot homes would fit on this property with no issues at all. I believe there's no services on the property, but we still meet the area with respect to septic systems on this particular property. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting for us. I know prior to 1960, whatever was built or whatever, now the new zoning bylaw has kicked in, but you can clearly see that coming down the road, there are a number of houses that front onto this street. The dilemma that I have is that I got a lot now, which is like 300 by 300, whatever, in width and in depth. But it's a piece of land which is zoned R11, which fronts onto a city lane or a city driveway, I'm not sure, which is maintained by the city. Garbage is being picked up there. Snow is getting plowed by there. And one of my clients just recently down the road did build a house in 1980 on this particular street. So now we have a lot on the RR1 zone that doesn't front onto a street. And what even trying to build a single on this property, I don't think I can do that. So it becomes a legal question now is, how do you get around this? So I need a decision from the committee, and I probably know what that decision is going to be, but I need a decision from the committee, and then I will have to look at alternatives to trying to get this file through. Next slide, please. Yeah, there's the subject property. You can clearly see where the green line is. That's the lane, and it goes all the way down to the park and then down to the river. So I'm stuck right in the middle. I have no idea how this lot was allowed to be severed if you cannot build anything or develop anything on this property. You look at the two houses towards the left on the corner where River Road is, and that one house over there has a driveway, a 3-meter driveway that comes in, which allows it, the property next door to me, that allows it to front onto River Road. And then all the other roads to the left of the star, as you go down, you can see there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 lots down there. But then this lot becomes totally useless. I don't know how they can even sell this lot, or if you can't build on it, what are you going to do? You're going to plant tomatoes there and have a garden on this property? It's a great lot to be developed. If you look to the north, there's 3 or 4 other lots that have been developed with a nice little cul-de-sac. So we get caught with this technical thing, or whatever it is, that it is a lane and it's not fronting onto a public street. Next slide, please. Beautiful piece of land. Just look at it. You know what I mean? A beautiful piece of land that could have 3 new beautiful single homes on it to intensify this particular neighborhood. And then you get caught with this lane, as you can see here. Next slide, please. So again, that was our proposal, the trees, so on and so forth. That we had the information from the tree people. That's what that's indicating. The next slide, please. Again, the 3 lots. Next slide, please. And just some, nice custom homes that could be built on that property. Next slide, please. I think that's it, eh? Yeah, that's the same. Yeah, so basically, that's my presentation to you, and I'm puzzled right now that there's a lot in the middle of the city here that fronts onto a lane that was severed years ago, I don't know when, and basically it's not a buildable lot. How is that? Is that commonly done in the city? Does it happen, or I have no idea. But I need a decision so then we can move forward with this application. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to the panel. Ask the panel if you've got questions for Mr. Segreto. Mr. Barrett, do you have a question for Mr. Segreto?
Yes, Mr. Segreto, thank you for your presentation. With regards to the site, it'll be serviced by well and septic, correct?
That's correct.
And is the street behind the site, to the north of the site, is it serviced, or is it well and septic as well?
No. To the north, the lots are a lot smaller, and you can see there's a road there and there's a cul-de-sac. That was some subdivision that was created years ago. If we go to that slide, you can clearly see that those lots are a lot smaller. There may be a third the size of what we're proposing on each lot.
So is there any way of suggesting that there would be an easement that could be for connection to the servicing?
Well, yeah, there could be, but the problem is you'd have to do a great deal of homework there. That's a great question. That you might have to create an easement through somebody's property there. I personally myself, I didn't look at that, but I don't think, I don't know if someone would want the services and utilities going through their side yard or something, but I guess that's something that could be explored with the owners,
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's all for now. Thank you.
But still, the services are one thing, but the city, I think, still will not allow it because I'm not fronting onto a public street. That's the dilemma that I have right now.
Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. McLean, do you have any questions for the applicant? Okay. And Mr. Baltz?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm not quite sure what you're asking us to do here, because we're discussing the need for what are variances, I believe. We can't give legal advice, which it sounds like, or planning advice, which it sounds like you may need. But a variance for 0 lot width, because there's no frontage on a public street, plus a variance for not fronting on a public street. I think those are at least 2 that you would need, but a planner would have to tell you that. I guess I'm confused about what you're asking us to do.
You
You're
know,
looking for a refusal of the consent and then you're gonna start over again? I don't understand the advantage to any of us of doing that.
I've been thinking about that with the variances, and I think in order to go ahead, I'm asking for a straight consent. Obviously, that it's not looking favorable, but I'm wondering if I should sine die this, and if I need to go for the variances, then apply for the variances, get the variances looked at, and then if I'm not successful at the variances, then I can appeal it at the tribunal.
I think that's really my, I mean, I can't give advice, but that's my question is why were you not doing that?
No,
That was why it was on the possible adjournment agenda at the beginning there. We've
because
certainly had a lot of applications in the past where it's come in missing variances and it gets adjourned sine die, and
yes,
planning tells you what you need.
we submitted this application to planning, I was told by my staff, about 3 months or so ago, and we were never questioned about any variances. It was just a refusal. But my understanding now is yes, in order to move forward with this, I would have to ask for some minor variances, and those variances would kick in, which are lot width or whatever, lot width or fronting onto a lane. So then those variances would be looked at, and then if they were refused, then I have the legal background of going to the tribunal and saying, listen, it was refused based on this, and that, and then I could move forward with it. So rethinking it all out, if the committee would allow me, I think I want to sine die the file, make the application for the variances, and then deal with it at a later date.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, we can still adjourn?
I think we can still adjourn, but I'd still like to get some comments from the planning
I was going to
staff.
suggest that maybe we should hear about this issue from planning and then
Yeah.
discuss whether we want to.
Because I think there's
adjourn it.
more than just variances. There's
Yeah.
probably an easement that's required as well. And we have a member of the public that would like to speak too, but before we get to the member of the public, I'd like to listen to Ms. Einkaran's comments.
Pre-consultation too.
Well, you can, sure. Ms. Einkaran.
Thank you, Chair. So the property is located within the 35 line on the airport operating influence zone within the under the official plan, and the official plan has some specific policies for residential infill developments in those areas, and one of which is that the property has to front on an existing public road that is maintained year-round. And in this case, that road is a city-owned driveway because it leads to the Ecoland Parks, which is a city, like a private property of the city, but it is maintained by the city. And because of that, the property does not have frontage on a public road, and there's no lot width, like my report says, and you've mentioned, and minor variances are required to allow those. And in this case, it looks, we keep going back to the official plan policies, and it looks like the minor variances would most likely not be supportable at this point because of the policies in the official plan. and staff are not in support of a plan of an application that is not aligning with the official plan and the zoning bylaw.
Okay. Are there any other, so there's minor variances? Can you number the minor variances that the applicant may need?
It would be two variances. One is for section 59 to the zoning bylaw, which requires a property to have frontage on a public road. And the second one is for section 156 of the zoning bylaw, which requires a lot width of 30 meters, but the property does not have lot width at all. So
Okay.
those are the two variances that would be needed.
Are there any other items that he requires? An easement potentially?
We would like to see if there is any right of way or an easement registered already. If we have imposed that as a condition as of now. If the applicant can show us that there is something already registered on title, it can establish that there's access to the property, but our concerns would still remain.
Okay, thank you. Any comments on this, Mr. Segreto?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of which is the best alternative for me to sine die this thing and reapply for those variances and then come in front of you again, or get a decision of denial on it and then see what I can do.
Okay, well, while you're pondering that, I'll ask Ms. McLean, do you have any other comments to make? No. Okay, questions, Ms. Wright, Mr. Barrett?
Through you to planning staff, just with regards to the other homes on that do not have a public road access or on a fronting on a public road. They were built previously, I guess, and it's more of a legal issue of you know, by not providing this property, it's really a chance to develop. It's really landlocked. Whereas the other properties have been able to develop without a frontage on a public road. Just a comment on that.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to ask the person from the public or a member of the public.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Sure.
Yes, to planning through you to Ms. Planner Ankaran. So just very specifically, so as Member Barrett was saying, you've got, I guess what's technically a lane, a public lane is its designation, or driveway?
Thank you, Mr. Balls. It's not a public lane. It's a city-owned driveway because if we look up the property on Geo Ottawa, it comes up as part of the Ecolands Park.
Okay, but looking at the, I guess from Geo Ottawa, whatever, or wherever this plan came from, all the other lots along that driveway have been developed. And so how can there be a policy that orphans one single plot, one single lot in the middle of all this developed area? I don't know how. It seems to be inconsistent when that is already a completely developed de facto street that gets plowed and maintained and people use and drive on, to say that it's somehow undesirable under the official plan for the single remaining lot to not be developed.
Thank you, Mr. Balls. As pointed out in my report, the properties that do have the houses on them, they seem to have existed at least since the 1960s, which means they predate the current zoning bylaw and the official plan, and it's also pre-amalgamation, which means it would have been part of the city of Gloucester, which would have had a different bylaw and official plan. So I am unable to speak to how those properties were allowed or how what rules were back then. But if there's a property that's coming for 320 River Road, because the development is proposed right now, we would have to look at the current zoning bylaw and the official plan, and that is the reason it appears that because the property has been vacant for so long and we have to look at the current provisions, that's where the issue is.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, for taking so much time, but what's the specific OP provision that's driving the opinion of the planning department that this should be refused?
Thank you, Mr. Boggs. It's because of its proximity to the Ottawa airport, and it's section, so just give me 1 minute. It's section 10.2.2 of the official plan, which says protection of airport and aircraft operations. And it says that any new development between the 35 line and the airport operating influence zone must meet a few policies, and one of them being that the infill development fronts on an existing public road. And there are other policies that the property, that the proposal doesn't meet either. Like, for example, noise control study is required and has not been submitted as part of the application. But we would like to impose that as a condition if the if the application is approved. And it also says that it must meet all the zoning bylaw provisions, and appropriate noise warning clauses must be included on title. So because it does not meet a number of those policies, that's why we are recommending refusal.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Does the panel have any further questions for the applicant? No? Okay, now there is someone from the public. I believe it's Fawn Getty. Is that correct? No? Well, come on down, ma'am, if you'd like to sit on the right-hand side over here. And let us know your name and your address. Just down on the right-hand side, on your left-hand side. Yep. Yep. Please have a seat, and then you have to press the green button so that you can be heard.
I live on Ria Place, which is my backyard.
What's the address, ma'am?
My address?
Yes.
1462 Ria Place,
And what's your name?
Ruth Herman.
Thanks, Ruth. Please proceed.
Okay. I just wondered, well, I think it was early 1950s, and a house was built on that private road where those properties are, what we're talking about, those three properties. It's and it says, I don't know if the sign is still there, it's always said private road. And you go down, you stay on the right side if you want to go down the hill to the private properties. But if you go to the Ecklands Park, you have to go down and then stay a little bit to the left to get to Ecklands Park, to the waterfront. And as far as I know, my husband and I, we built our house, and there were only, I think, 3 houses in the area at the time, 3 or 4, no more than that. And we always knew the owner of those properties. They live just behind us, and he owns all that land. And he's, well, anyways, he inherited from his parents, you know, the whole, you know the story, I'm sure. But I just wondered what happens if those houses would be there one day in those 3 properties. What would happen? Where would they put the pipes for gas? And because we have gas on ours, and oil and water wells. you know, where would they do that? Or I wouldn't want to have them go through our properties.
So this is part of what we're trying to decide today. So the applicant's making an application to develop those properties. It's
Mhm.
got a few hurdles to cross.
Yeah.
And so we're just trying to decide on that today.
I would not agree with that. I wouldn't, I mean, nobody would like that on our.
It's still a long way, it's still a ways away. He still has
Uh-huh.
to get over this hurdle of this hearing today.
Mhm, mhm.
And there will be an opportunity for you to comment, because you will be receiving, if he decides to go forward with this
Mhm.
and adjourn it, sine die, there will be another notification of a further hearing to go
Mhm.
through what his plans are.
Well, anyways, I don't want to speak about the owner and stuff like that.
I think it's premature too.
I-
We still have another opportunity to have this go through.
I'm not going to discuss anything.
Okay.
about him.
Thank you very much for your input, ma'am.
Okay, I just wouldn't want the pipes go through my property, you know, that's the only thing I'm worried about. Because I'm ending up with trees and garbage which are thrown over to my property. I took pictures and everything, and then he asked me one time to pay for his tree, which was going like this. He said I should pay. I said to him, it's your property, it's your tree, it's your expense, your responsibility about the tree where it's falling to. So anyways, they're all little things. It's okay.
There's going to be another opportunity for you to speak to
Yeah,
this. matter.
that's the only thing I'm worried about, and most people on that street. That where would the pipes go to?
Okay.
You know, and because nothing was on those three properties were not allowed to build for ever since I remember 1960. I remember, and okay.
Thank you
that's
very
all
much for
I-
your help.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. If you want to come up and have your opportunity to speak, please.
Questions for after if things were to be approved?
Is it possible, Mr. Chair, to find out from someone what the rules are and the intent about getting utilities, if any, to these?
I think it's premature, Mr. Bulls, because essentially he's going to have to go through this application process again. Because he's got to satisfy a few other items that have been enumerated right now. And with that, there'll be a further discussion on where utilities are coming from and how. they're
I
getting there.
understand that. I'm just wondering whether you can force somebody to allow pipes to run through their existing yard or not.
I don't
right?
have an answer to that. Maybe
Exactly.
planning
Maybe
too.
planning does. It could reassure.
Okay, Ms. Einkran, did you understand the question?
Do you repeat that question, please?
So I think the two delegations are concerned that because they have gas and water and sewer to their plot, that if these lots were developed, they would somehow have the right to connect through their lots to the other street to do that. But well, I guess that's a question. I don't think that's allowed. You can't force somebody else to allow you to dig up their lot to get to a line, can they, or can they not?
I think Ms. O'Connell's online and she'd be better positioned to say something on this issue.
Thank you.
Ms. O'Connell?
Just to provide that assurances to the resident, no, utilities can't be placed on somebody's property without their explicit permission. So if that was being pursued by this application, they would have to definitely speak to the owner and have that legalized through an easement, likely.
Thank you.
Hi,
Hi. Ms.
I think,
Bond.
yeah, something towards that as well is one of the other neighbors, when there was construction going, his well got tainted from construction, but that, I guess it's premature right now to ask some of those questions. And other questions we had too is one, if it gets approved, you know, speed bumps, various things like that, the legal access, would it be going into our property and whatnot? But as you mentioned, it's premature
It's
right now
premature.
to ask these questions
Yeah,
until.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, that's basically what my questions would have been, so.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Getty.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so if I have this right now, Mr. Segreto, you've got two choices. You can either proceed with the application or you can go sine die and try to resolve those outstanding issues before we come back again.
If the chair and the committee would allow me, I would like to sine die it, and I can do a little bit more research on some of this stuff.
Okay, I'll ask the panel if you'd like to adjourn this application sine die. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Your application, Mr. Segreto, is adjourned sine die.
Thank you so much.
That means it'll be brought up at another time.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, our next application that we will be hearing is application number 10, has to do with 49 Rothwell. Jay Anendu, are you available? You still have some questions? Yes, yes, it is. Mr. Anendu, are you available?
He's online and just joining the meeting now.
Thank you. Hello, Mr. Anendu.
Yes, I'm available. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can barely see you, but we can hear you.
Okay. I just wanted to speak about the email sent in by the Rothwell Heights Property Owners Association. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm just going to ask the panel first if they'd like to have a small presentation of this application. Would you like to hear that, or are you good just to jump into?
I'm fine just to jump into the addressing the comments.
Mr. Barrett, is right? Okay. One of our members would like to hear a small presentation or a short presentation on your application today, sir. Could you please provide one?
I don't have I didn't file in to bring a presentation. I just have a comment because the comments that were all sent in had no objections, just the one from the Rothwell Heights Property Owners Association that was asking that our application be approved on the condition that we submit a landscape plan. I just want to comment that the landscape plan is already a part of the submission that was made to the city, and it's being reviewed by the zoning department, who enforces landscape issues, and they will enforce whatever has been decided by the city. So it should not be made a condition for approval of our variance application, because that would be duplication of the review of the zoning department, which is already in possession of the tree report, whereby recommendations were made. So the plan is to be approved by the zoning department based on their rules and regulation. So the suggestion by the Property Owners Association that it should be, with our application should be approved with a condition of a landscape being implemented, is a duplication of the already review of the zoning department. Is a duplication of the work of the zoning department, which already has a landscape plan with the trees that will be replaced according to the trees that were removed. So what I'm saying is that this letter should not be considered because it's already being considered by the zoning department as part of our building permit, construction permit application.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Now I'd like to ask the panel if they have any questions. Ms. Wright?
I don't, unfortunately, I don't have the landscape plan in front of me. I do recall you having some new trees put in. I think I counted, you're removing 15 trees in total. Can you tell me how many new ones you are going to be putting back?
That is subject of the landscape application, which is part of the grading plan that is submitted to the city. Our application, our variance application has to do with the driveway only. So based on that, I don't have the landscape plan right now with me. If you want, it can be sent in after this, but it is not the subject of this application. It's already the subject of a construction of a permit to construct, which is being reviewed by the zoning department. And that's my argument, that our application is for a variance of the driveway. Every other thing to do with the trees and the rest have been taken care of in a landscape plan, which is submitted to the building department, and it's being reviewed by the zoning department. So if the Rothwell House Property Association have a suggestion to make, they should be making it to the building department for the zoning to consider in their approval of our application. It shouldn't be coming to the variance department, because this is not, I mean, it shouldn't be coming to the Committee of Adjustment, because it's not the subject application.
Are any of the trees that are being taken down due to the fact that the driveway is larger?
No, they're not. The trees that will be taken down are not part of the driveway being like that. They are not in the location of the driveway. They are in several other locations.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Barrett, do you have any questions for the applicant? No. Ms. McLean, Mr. Bolts?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. I'd now like to ask planning if they have planning services. Ms. King, have you got any comments to make?
Yeah, so we have no concerns with the application. I guess because we are on the topic of discussing with trees, but this property was in consultation with bylaw, who were enforcing the driveway, but also with the forestry inspector, which then looped in myself and our forestry team when the survey application came in. But we're supportive of this driveway because from what I understand, the dwelling that you see on the plans, that's already in construction. If you did have the opportunity to go on street view, you would see where there was a tree very close to the street. But because it's still being protected despite how wide this driveway is going, it's still 6 meters at the private approach, which means right away staff is satisfied, but then forestry staff can also support a widened driveway because it is protecting that tree at the front. I do think our forestry commenter is online if the committee does have questions, but that's why staff essentially has no concerns with this proposal.
Yeah. We have forestry online. Would you like to hear from forestry, Mr. Bolts?
Wasn't my question, but yeah, we can hear from forestry.
Okay.
Sure.
Mr. Alvarez Barkham. Any
Thanks.
comments to make about the tree?
The remaining tree that is in the right of way, we have received assurances that it will be protected. So our infill inspector is sort of working on ensuring that happens through construction. Most of the removals have already happened for the rest of the site. I don't have access to a detailed planting plan, unfortunately. But the infill inspector is the one who is reviewing that and sort of following up on that and making sure that does get carried out.
Thank you.
But just as a final sort of reassurance, because this has gone through a building permit, the trees are subject to the standard compensation requirements for new plantings or compensation through cash in there.
Anything further, Mr. Bolts?
Yeah, just one quick question, I guess, to planning rather than for either. This is tied to the plan, right? So the shape of the driveway being narrow at the front and only widening at the back is a requirement of what will be part of the approval. Yes.
I believe you are correct. It should be tied to plans, but that's why we're all supportive of it, especially right-of-way staff, forestry staff, and myself, because it starts as a double wide driveway.
Right.
We're relying on that, and then it can flare out. Then we have no concerns. If we were
Right.
going the full width, we might be having a bit of a different conversation, but maybe I'll look to committee staff just to confirm that, yes, it is tied to plans.
Yes, it is tied to plans according to our standard.
So the shape is tied to plan, and therefore in perpetuity, that driveway will be that shape and won't be widened anywhere else. Thank you.
Okay. Panel have any further questions for either forestry or planning services? No? Okay. We may have somebody from the public. Is Jane Bremer from the Rothwell Heights Property Owners Association here or online?
I don't see her online, Mr. Chair, but if she wants to raise her hand, we do have a few people in the waiting room. Nope, no one's raising their hand.
Okay. All right. So that all to say, I'd like to ask Mr. Anendu if you've got any final comments to make.
Yeah, my final comment would be that the application be determined and approved based on the merits, and be limited to what we have applied for, which is the driveway. There's a building permit application that is currently in process, and this application for variance is as a result of the application that is in process. They ask that the variance be approved, as a condition to issue the permit. So they are going to enforce the standard regulations for the compensatory tree planting and other financial compensation for trees cut. It is part of their package. There was a TIR, tree information report, that was made, and the forestry reviewed it and accepted the recommendations. So the building permit will be issued with those recommendations as part of the permit, and it will be enforced by the zoning officers before an occupancy permit is issued. So it should not come up at this, because the city department already has it in view, and they are the enforcing officers to enforce that their standard requirement for tree replacements is carried out before an occupancy permit is issued. So I'm asking that the application be approved on its merit, being that it is for a driveway and not for a landscape.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to ask the panel if they would like to reserve our decision on this application. All those in favor? Your application will be reserved and you will receive notification of our decision within 10 days, sir. Thank you very much for your help.
Thank you.
Our last application we'll hear today is item number 11, has to do with 184 Woodroffe Avenue. And we're looking for Serena Shahzadeh and Barrett Wagger.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair.
Hello.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Can you state your name and your address, please?
My name is Serena Shahzadeh, and our offices are at 1331 Clyde Avenue, Suite 300.
Okay. Would you like to give us a brief explanation of your application today?
For sure. We submitted a presentation.
We have that application. There we go.
Perfect. All right, so the application for minor variance is to facilitate the development of a 10-unit low-rise apartment building. Next slide, please. Just for some quick context, the property is on Woodroffe Avenue, and the surrounding area has a mix of residential uses and densities, and a mix of commercial, retail, and institutional uses. Next slide, please. In terms of policy, the property is in close proximity to existing and proposed transit, including some existing bus stops, future LRT stations, and major pathways for active transportation. The property is in the inner urban transect, which pushes for higher densities and mix of uses to support 15-minute neighborhoods, and generally permits up to 9 stories on Main Street corridors. The property is designated a Main Street corridor, which is planned to accommodate a higher density of development. Next slide, please. So the development for a 10-unit low-rise apartment building requires some minor variances, which are to increase the number of units and to permit reduced front, rear, and interior side yard setbacks. I would like to note that the site plan has been updated to address some comments from forestry and planning. So the building footprint has been flipped, and the waste enclosure and bicycle parking has been moved to the opposite side in order to protect the existing Norway maple. With regard to the forecasts, the official plan pushes for more growth through intensification in the built-up area to support the evolution of 15-minute neighborhoods, and with the majority of intensification, including residential, to be directed to corridors. So the relief requested allows the development to provide building massing and density that's consistent with the intent of the policies and moves toward the ultimate vision of a Main Street corridor in the inner urban transect, while remaining sensitive and consistent with the surrounding low-rise built form.
The property is zoned R4D. The R4 zone allows a mix of low-rise built forms. The increase in units is consistent with the official plan direction that designates the site as a main street in a permitted built form. The interior side yard requirement is 1.5 meters and goes up to 6 meters. And the intent of that 6 meters is to regulate building development on deeper lots. The proposed building exceeds the 1.5 meter requirement, providing about 1.68 on both sides, which appropriately separates the building from adjacent lots and maintains access to the rear yard. The front yard setback is intended to ensure a consistent street wall and for programming in the front yard. The proposed building exceeds the requirement for soft landscaping in the front yard and allows the building to better address and contribute to the streetscape as consistent with the Main Street corridor policies. The rear yard setback requirements intend to provide enough area for functionality of the building. The proposed rear yard setback maintains enough space for waste management and bicycle parking, as well as exceeding the requirement for rear yard area, rear yard soft landscaping, and amenity area. In terms of desirability, the increase in units meets the policy direction for intensification while maintaining a low-rise built form that is appropriate in this area. The interior side yard, proposed interior side yard setback provides sufficient space on both sides of the building for access to the rear yard, and having that consistent 1.6 meters on either side allows for a consistent and more functional building. The front yard setback reduction helps the building better address the streetscape per the Main Street corridor policies, while still exceeding the soft landscaping requirement, so it helps to contribute to a more green and comfortable streetscape. The proposed rear yard setback still provides sufficient area for functionality while exceeding the requirements for rear yard area, which is about 25% of the lot area, and the other functions proposed. In terms of the increase in units provides intensification in a low-rise built form that's permitted use and built form in this area. The interior side yard setback reduction for that back portion of the building still allows that access to the rear yard and for building separation from adjacent lots. And maintaining a consistent interior side yard for the building has no impact on the streetscape or adjacent properties. The proposed front yard setback reduction is indiscernible from the streetscape, but still allows for that streetscape animation and fronting, which is appropriate along a Main Street corridor. The rear yard setback, proposed rear yard setback, still provides enough area for amenity area and the other functions for the functionality of the building, and doesn't impact adjacent properties. So based on this, the minor variances meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act, and this building would provide intensification on an appropriately designated lot close to neighborhood amenities and transit, so contributing to 15-minute neighborhood on a Main Street corridor. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'd like to move to our panel and ask if they've got any questions for the applicant. Ms. Wright, do you have any questions?
I do. I have some questions about the size of the garbage enclosure, and it may not sort of impact many of the variances that you're requesting, but it might impact the rear yard setback and then ultimately the size of the soft landscaping in the rear yard. And it just looks small to me. And so maybe if you can walk me through how you're going to fit the 8 large bins and the 1 large green bin in a 7x14 building. I just don't see how it physically works.
So the designer did take a look at the minimum areas required for the waste enclosure and making sure that all the bins can fit in it, and has configured it in a way to ensure that it can fit all of the required bins for the 10 units, and still ensure that residents can adequately access the bins for their use.
Okay.
So the enclosure meets the requirements under the waste enclosure section of the zoning bylaw.
Okay, because I noticed on one plan back in the previous late last fall application where the bins were all just placed in and there was no aisle to get to them, and that's how my whole question came about. But as long as you and planning can assure me that the current 7x14 foot roughly building is the correct size, then I'm fine. Thank you.
On that same vein, planning planner, do you have a floor plan of that enclosure showing where those actual bins are placed within? No, not city planner, the applicant's planner.
I believe we have it on a previous version of the site plan. I don't think we have it in the presentation.
I think it was if I remember correctly, and I don't have it in front of me, the tree information report in the old application. The one from December, are we adjourning this from December or November? October.
I believe that was shown on the first version of the site plan that was submitted initially with the application, but not the current version of the site plan or in the updated TIR. But the waste enclosure does meet the minimum requirements under the waste management bylaw. And there is a property manager who would be in charge of maintaining the bins and bringing them out to the curb to make sure that everything functions well.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Ms. McLean, do you have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Baltz, any questions? Mr. Barrett, any questions?
Just a question of clarification through you, Mr. Chair. I may have missed the reason why the storage bins were moved to the other side of the property. What was the answer to that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it was to address comments from forestry in order to retain the tree. So when the enclosure was on the left-hand side, that was in direct location of the Norway maple that's on the site, and it would have been removed. So when we flipped the building footprint and moved the enclosure to the other side and moved the stairs to the other side as well, that ensured that we can retain the tree.
Thank you for that.
All right, now I'd like to ask Planning Services, Ms. Einkaran, if you've got any comments to make about this application.
Thank you, Chair. Staff have no concerns with the application, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Ms. Wright, do you have any questions for planning?
No, I don't.
Ms. McLean, any questions? Mr. Baltz? Any questions?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. So part of the rationale for not having concerns was that 8 stacked dwellings would be allowed in this zone. Which I find a little confusing because they have a completely different set of setbacks and standards and zoning requirements. Would stacked dwellings actually fit on this lot?
Thank you, Mr. Balls. Can I just take a moment to look at the provisions?
Sorry?
Can I take a moment to look at the provisions?
Oh, sure. I've just seen this justification come up before from planning that stacked, and I just wonder if it's actually valid.
It appears that they would require minor variances for lot width, lot area, and maybe interior side yard setback if they were to propose a stacked dwelling on this property.
And that's only for 8 rather than 10. So, yeah, I mean, without prejudicing my vote before we have our deliberations, there's enough other justifications for this. I just, that justification has come from planning staff before, and I just find it kind of odd because it's a completely different building typology that may or may not fit on the particular site. And so I'm not sure it is relevant that 8 units of a different kind would fit there. 6 units in long semis would also fit, but again, those are very different requirements. Okay, it's really more of a comment, I guess, than a question, but I'm just questioning the relevance of the stacked townhouses when we're looking at a 10-unit apartment building.
Thank you, Mr. Baltz. All right, so there's no one from the public, I don't believe, interested in making a comment on this application. So I would like to give the applicant, Ms. Shazeda, the last word.
I think we covered everything through the cover letter and the application. And given the policy direction of the official plan designating this property as a Main Street corridor in the interurban transect, the property is appropriate for the type of intensification that's being proposed as it's still consistent with and sensitive to the surrounding context. And also I would like to note that although it's still a draft, the new zoning bylaw does propose to zone this property as a Main Street Zone 1, and under the proposed provisions, the proposed development would be permitted as of right. So we're kind of moving towards the ultimate vision of a Main Street corridor while maintaining the neighborhood context.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'd like to ask the panel if they'd like to reserve on this decision. All those in favor, raise your hands. So we're going to reserve on this application, and you'll hear from us within 10 days of our decision, for our decision. Thank you very much, Ms. Shedis. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe that concludes our meeting for today.
That's all items.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for your help today, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.